Getting into the weeds of pulling a permit. In a prior video, we talked about more of the mindset around why you should pull a permit, in general, how you should pull a permit, the benefits of doing it, with the whole goal to reduce the time that it takes you from start to finish your flip, especially on a house when you're pulling permits. So today we're going to get a lot more detailed, more of a step-by-step SOP, systems and process of how to do this. So we're back with Esteban from Momentum Construction.
Let's go.
And let's dive right into it. So when we start, we're going to talk about the action or what we're going to do, who is involved and who might be responsible, and what is the result and the next step of what we're going for. So to start, if we're going to be pulling permits on a house, let's just go ground level. And keep in mind, these are the general things, but you may do it in a slightly different way or have a different person that will help you. But when we're getting a permit, what is the first thing that we need?
The first thing you are going to need is to have a clear plan and then understand that you're going to pull the permit.
Yeah. So we're going to need to know what things we're changing to the house. Yeah. And then we're going to need to put it on paper. And generally, how do we do that?
The first thing the basic tool that you could you could use is a cubic casa, just like we explained. But definitely cities are needing more specific plans where you're going to put all the notes and all the specifications you will do. So you will hire either a draftman or an engineer to do that.
Yeah, and Cubic Casa, if you guys aren't familiar with it, and there's probably other software, it allows you to basically recreate on a 2D view the current existing floor plan of a house. So the city's going to want to see the existing floor plan, the demo plan if you're doing one, and then what the new layout and the new features will be.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, the city is going to require even those plans and also a cover sheet explaining what you're doing. The second one is a site plan when you show the lot and all the lot lines and the location where the house sits reference to all the setbacks and all the lines. In case you're building an addition, you gotta make sure that you are meeting also those requirements, the setbacks. The city also is gonna need a proposed or an existing plan and a proposed plan.
Yep.
And that is the most important thing. And the more detail you can do those two, it's.
But I don't want to do that. I'm only doing an interior remodel. Why? I don't want to submit. I don't need to submit a site plan.
You still need to submit a site plan, no matter, because the city, remember, it has 4 departments, which is building, zoning, public utilities, and the assistance. So in order to get a permit, you will need.
This is the point, and this is a thing that a lot of people say is like, well, so you got to know why.
Exactly.
And sometimes the answer, unfortunately, is because that's just what they require.
That's what they require, yeah.
So
there is no way around that, quite honestly. It's like you have to submit that.
And that's the point of this video. This is what they require, so this is what you do, so you don't get frustrated and delayed and not knowing. And so sometimes just the answer is because that is part of getting a permit. So that's really important. Site plan,
cover sheet, existing plans, proposed plans, electrical plans. And this is one, it's very important because they want to make sure that you are updating their smoke detectors.
Yep. And we're going to give you a copy, and you're probably seeing on the screens the general diagrams of what we're talking about. Okay, so that's very detailed. So we start with a general 2D layout so that we can manipulate it.
Correct.
Then if you can put it in AutoCAD, amazing. Right. But even if you just, at a simple level, take the 2D layout and modify it on your own, is that generally going to be good enough as long as it's realistically what's going to be done to the house and it has the specific notes for electrical, plumbing, any structural you're doing, new floor plan layout, and then we'll get into like the highlights of what pain points come back from a plan. But do you have to go to the full depth of AutoCAD, or could you get away with just like a hand-drawn or computer-generated floor plan like Cubic Casa?
The basic you go, then the harder it will be for the city to understand.
Perfect.
And then the longer it will take. So the answer is yes, you can even put it in a napkin and then write it down with a pen and paper, and that's it. But the city will say, no. Like, you'll need more information. And that's where all the notes that we're going to provide you, it's going to come in place.
So there's a good, better, and best way to do this. If you try to shortchange the process, maybe you don't want to hire a draftsman that might cost you a few $1,000s. But if you're sitting on a hard money loan that's $300,000 to $500,000, and that's $300,000 to $5,000 a month, and it takes you an extra month to get the permit,
might as well just hire a draftsman.
You might as well just hire the right person to do it.
Exactly. So in the plans that you're going to submit, you're going to make sure that you have all the notes needed.
Define what notes you're talking about.
Notes like minimum requirements for egress windows.
And this is basically restating to the city what their code states.
Correct. Yeah. So the city wants to make sure that when the inspector comes by, he has some support of showing you basically what you're doing is the right thing to do. Because if not, then there's nothing to base off of anything. There's nothing to base.
So the notes are basically going to be, and we'll provide you an example,
Sure.
But if you're changing windows, the specifications that are part of the zoning or part of the building code,
Yeah.
Why it's meeting that new standard,
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Specifically, the most important things they are going to require is the safety code, the safety notes for your electrical and for your means of egress.
So if you don't understand this process, you need to hire somebody, or maybe the first step you need to do is understand intimately what code requirements are there with the city and the building department so that you can accurately put those on the plans so that you don't get feedback that you don't know what you're talking about because it's not up to code.
Correct.
So what are some of the common things that you've really got to pay attention to for code? So let's talk about electrical, egress with windows, maybe structural and plumbing.
Let's start with the egress. And this is a general rule for everything. The city will see the city has a say. If you touch it, you update it.
Yep. If you touch it, you update it.
That means if you are remodeling the house and then you are moving the bedrooms, even if you're changing a closet, that means you're touching the bedroom. That means you have to update the bedroom to have a new means of egress that meets code.
Yep.
If you are replacing...
And so what does that generally mean? You got to saw cut, open up the foundation, do a window to code.
A window well, install a window well.
A window well so that you can get out of the window.
Because generally the existing houses only have a small window that is not big enough in case then it's a fire or something needs to be scheduled.
So if you have an existing basement bedroom and you literally are doing nothing but painting it, do you need to update the window there?
Ultimately, will depend to the city, but my answer will say no.
Okay, cool. Then that's more of a marketing and function and value proposition if you're going to decide to do that or not. So egress windows are going to be important. If you touch it, you got to update it. So if you're touching it, you got to know what that new updated requirement is. That needs to go on the notes, and then you need to accurately display it on the plans.
Correct. You got to put a detail in the plans, which we will show you too, that it's a specific detail that all the cities accept, regardless of where they are, they will accept that detail because it's up to a code. The second thing in the electrical notes are the smoke detectors.
Yep.
You got to make sure that you have the smoke detectors in every bedroom and outside of every bedroom.
Do they need to be wired?
They need to be hardwired with a battery backup.
Okay, hardwired with a battery backup. So even if all you're doing is the only thing that you would get a permit for is, say, plumbing in a bathroom, like doing a new bathroom, would you then have to rewire and would you then have to put hardwired smoke detectors throughout the whole house?
If it is just the bathroom, and that's realistically what you're doing for a flip, which I really doubt it, but it's possible, I would say no. But at the end of the day, ultimately, the city will be the one making the call. I would just plan for it right off the bat because they are not too hard to do if you are only touching a bathroom. However, if you're also touching the bathroom, you have to update the electrical in the bathroom, which they will require you to update the outlets to be GFI.
Yep.
That basically means in case the outlet gets wet, then it doesn't light up the house.
So maybe bullet point items for common. If you touch it, you got to update it. So plugs are going to have to be GFCI throughout the house if they're not.
Correct.
And you're going to have grounded outlets on the walls.
Correct.
Right? You're going to have smoke detectors that are hardwired. What about if all of that's done, but you don't want to replace the panel? when might you need to get into replacing the service panel or even just the panel inside the house?
It's when you're adding stuff to the house.
Got it.
So if we're not adding stuff to the house, meaning more circuits to the house, then I don't think you will need to replace it. But if you're adding an extra circuit for a washer and dryer, or more can lights, or now you're adding a second kitchen in the basement and you need to run a new extra wire, then you will need to update the panel.
Got it. And then again, I'll say this again. The point here is you got to understand or hire somebody that understands the specific code requirements that would be relative to the scope of work that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and think ahead, plan ahead, put those on the plans, and then actually do them. Otherwise, you won't ever get your permit
Exactly.
signed off on. Well, you might get the permit, but you won't ever get the final inspection approved.
And then after building electrical, there is mechanical. So if you are updating the furnace, in this case, you will need to provide the city with something called a manual J&D, which also will provide you an example of that.
Okay, so just real quick, we're moving on from egress. We've talked about electrical. Now, what's the other part that could come into play?
HVAC.
Okay, HVAC.
Correct. So if you're going to update the HVAC system, the furnace, you will need to properly size, which the professional that you will hire will know about it. They will give you something called the manual J&D.
Manual J&D.
Correct.
What does that stand for? Manual.
That one I
Okay, manual J&D. We'll get you in the notes.
Yeah, it's just called manual J&D, but basically has the calculation for the size of the furnace, making sure that you're not putting a small furnace in a big house.
Yep.
That's basically what they're going to ask you for. And if you're moving the ducts around, they're also going to ask you for that, because that also sizes.
Yeah, but I don't want to bug my furnace guy. I don't want him. So the answer to that is great. You're going to then get delayed a week or two because
Correct.
the city's going to end up wanting it anyway. So you might as well just submit it and do that a little bit of the painful work up front.
Correct.
So that you're not delayed with the city review.
And then here's the catch. Like, the inspector will know once they come to the house if you update it or not. Like, bottom line, they will know. And if you do not have a manual J&D up front, they're going to ask for it on site, which will delay your project even longer.
Yep. Yeah. So that's the other point. Don't try to sneak one past the goalie.
Yeah.
You know, with the inspectors, because there's a chance that every once in a while an inspector might be asleep at the wheel and not see something.
Sure.
But if you misrepresent what you're doing and then you get caught, again, it may not be a delay for the permit, but it's going to be a delay almost like a red tag, where now there might be a time where you absolutely forgot and changed something along the way. Then you're just going to have to deal with it. But if you know going in, you're changing all of these things. Point being for this video is put them on the plans. And why? The answer is because the city wants it. So
correct.
HVAC, what about plumbing? What are some common things that people forget to put when it's related to plumbing?
Plumbing, generally speaking, they are very much leaving that liability to the subcontractor and to the inspector. In the plans, they do not require, for the most part, a detailed plan of where the plumbing is going to go, because there is so many ways to do it. They are only require that in a commercial.
They might just say, okay, that's where it's going to be.
Add the notes, making sure that you have your water heater strap, make sure that you have a expansion tank, make sure that you have the right sizing of the pipes, but that's going to be on the notes, and then we will provide you.
And again, the notes need to come from somebody that knows what specifications are going to be required from the city. So this video is not going to have time to go into all the details about like what kind of strap to put on there or whatever, but just know if you're replacing a water heater, you know. Now, let's talk really quick too about, well, this is going to be more of an inspection thing. Like if you're putting drywall, that's not going to be an inspection, or that's not going to be a permit thing. That's going to be more of like, and we'll do a follow-up video about maybe the nuts and bolts and the weeds of like dealing with inspectors, but that'd be more of an inspector thing along the way, right?
Correct. So each city has a specific inspections that they will require you to have.
Yeah.
But right now
we'll do a video on that. And then what about, I mean, it's an obvious one that maybe we should have talked about first. If you're opening up a wall, what do you need to show or not show?
So in the wall, remember from the get-go, we said an existing and a proposed plans. Then if you're removing a bearing wall, it's very simple. You take your proposed plans or your set of plans and you give it to the engineer. Once the engineer gives you back, it has a stamp, and the city will just literally just look at the stamp and say go.
Okay. So a structural engineer is going to need to be involved, and then you're going to need to note it on the plans and have a stamp from the structural engineer to certify that you're opening it up. So I think we've pretty much covered the pre-work
what you need in the plan.
that you need to go. So if you're looking at this going, man, I've never done this before, I think what you need to do is find a who, meaning find the right person that can help you. An architect, a draftsman, a structural engineer. And that's going to come from networking. And just like most of your referrals are going to come from networking, and it's probably going to be a smaller 1 or 2 man shop that does smaller projects. You're probably not going to find at an affordable rate like a higher end firm. You got to find someone like I found with Esteban that kind of learned it and was new, but knows what he's doing and can kind of be very flexible and so you got to find, so that person is out there. You just are going to have to network a little bit more to find it. So, okay, we've submitted the plans. So now let's talk a little bit about what you should expect with involvement with the city and when you pay for things that sometimes over the time you've forgotten about that end up coming back to bite you.
Yeah. So now once you have all your set of plans together, let's talk about the process of submitting to the city. Basically, you have to submit one more time for 4 permits: building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Yep.
No matter what, like most different cities have different ways, but we're just talking about Salt Lake City. So you're gonna have to apply for those 4. And the most important thing is, like, once you apply, you have to pay for the fees too, in order for them, the city, to review your plans.
Yep.
And they have a very specific way where they want to see the plans. All the sheets that we talked about, so the cover sheet, the existing plans, the site plan, all of that, they have to be in separate files. Name the name of the sheet. Meaning the cover sheet, it's C1, you gotta put the name of the file as C1. The existing plans are E1, you gotta put it as E1. The proposed plans are E2, you put E2, and so on and so forth.
And what happens if you don't?
Then the reviewer will say you're not submitted it in the proper format, so they're going to push back the task to you, and you'll have
so
to
what ends up happening now? You've just delayed yourself a week.
Exactly.
Okay.
Bottom line,
you're delaying yourself by not knowing what you need to do ahead of time. Hopefully, this video is helping. So you've properly prepared the 4 different permits that need to go in the right order. You got to pay 4 separate fees.
Correct.
And now they go to an official plan review.
Then you get a link where you will submit the plans.
Got it.
Because then you have all your files, just pay the fees. They will tell you, okay, cool, good job. Here's the link where you're going to upload them. Once you upload them, then they will have a checklist. And that's where you're going to be paying close attention to. Because once you upload them, you put the checklist together, they technically have 21 business days to reply to you, which they could take that long. But generally speaking, they can take less if you know where the money's at, which is in the follow-up.
Yeah. Okay, so great. So 21 days by law to get to them. How do you follow up without annoying the inspector or the plan review people to maybe get it to go a little quicker?
You use phrases like, can you provide me with the building permit number? And they will more than happy to do that, because they will. And then you can say something like, hey, by the way, do you know who this got assigned to in the building department or the zoning department or the public utilities department? And then they will give you a name, and you can find the name of those reviewers online, because there is a staff directory where you can go to. And then just pretty much email them, hey, a week later, I just wanted to follow up, make sure that you don't have any questions. And if you do, I'm here to give you all the answers that you need.
Got it. And when you email them, you already have the specific file number that they can quickly reference. Correct. So that they're not wasting a lot of time on their end. Okay. What happens if by chance, or what's the percentage of time that you actually get feedback saying, hey, I need clarification on this, or you didn't do this quite right? Mm-hmm. Does that happen quite often?
We come back to the good, better, and best. If you add all the notes you need, if you add all the specifications they want, then you most likely will not have any comments back to you. And once they get back to you, it's just like a permit approved, pay the fees, and make sure to have your plan stamp at the job site.
Perfect. So if you do get comments back, what's the best practice to respond back to those?
They will have the same portal, the same link than they send you in the very beginning. They will assign you and they will email you a task. Then you will have to accept. And then what they do is they upload the comments into the files or into the PDF, and you will read the comments. The most important thing here is you have, and I cannot stress this the most, you have to reply to the comments. Meaning, you cannot just do the fixes and then just resubmit it.
You gotta
Explain
what you fixed. Okay.
Correct.
Awesome. So then, do you have to pay any other fees to get the permit approved, or once you pay the fees to start, does that cover? Are you paying any fees anytime else with the city?
Yes. So you're paying fees upfront to review your plans, and then you're paying fees after to get the plans back to you to pay everything.
So there's a chance if you don't know you need to pay those, you may be wondering why in the world don't I have my plans? Well, you forgot to pay for the fees with the permit. Okay, so this is great. So we're kind of wrapping up. Now you get the plans back from the city. The next step is make sure you receive the stamp copy and leave a copy at the house so that once the inspector comes through, and then we'll do another video on that about how to best practices deal with inspectors. But I would say the theme of this video, because there was a lot here and there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of detail we didn't cover, it's know what you don't know ahead of time and spend that time to learn it so that you don't get delayed in the process. And if you don't know it and you don't want to learn it, find somebody that's done it before that knows how to do it so that you don't get delayed. Because all of these things, if you screw up on this, that, or whatever along the way, you're talking weeks, months of frustration and burning interest. If you would just spend a little bit more time up front, invest that money in the right people to help you when you're doing a permitted job, you will sail through the process and have much more confidence and ultimately save more time and money. You often don't think about, you think about the money that you're saving by not hiring somebody, but you forget about the money you're paying in the delay in your interest and carry costs.
Correct. And again, like that money, you will find it in the follow-up.
Yep.
That's where you get the money's best. I really don't know how to say that, but like that's where you get all your money. Like, because from 21 business days, they can easily, if you follow up in a proper manner with respect and just asking questions, offering help, of answering everything that they need, that 21 business days can be short as a 7 business days.
Yep. And then again, kind of, we talked about this in the last video, but that time is money. So we're talking like probably a 15, best case, 15 to 30 day process to get that permit.
Yeah.
But if you do this all during your due diligence or before you close, before your money's getting, before you're paying interest, you can really hit the ground running and start the project, So there's a lot of efficiencies if you think through, and you got to sometimes go with the end in mind. What are we trying to do? Reverse engineer how we get there, know the details of where you're going so that you can save time, save money, be more effective and efficient in your flips. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining in this one, and have a great day.